What was life like for you on Wall Street when you first started? I believe you said in 83, up until you got sober in 1990. What did that look like? The progression, work life, the balance with the family?
Okay. There was no family. There was no balance. And my story is out there, but I really feel comfortable with you because of who you are, where you're from, our similarities. There's a level of comfort talking to another Long Island boy. And so I was, by the time I left college, which I don't remember, and I just finagled my way through. I was always book smart because I read a lot of books and I have a good head for that kind of thing. But I just wanted to get high. I just wanted to have fun with women. Literally. Now, some men say that, but I'm the kind of guy that when I'm really doing something, I'm doing it 100%. I became the man. Thank God there was no cell phones and social media at that time because it would be too crazy because I had never seen anybody that was like me. But it's expensive. I just got out of college, College Park, Maryland. I was a big player in college. I had a Camaro. We used to sell things. We used to throw parties and rent out facilities like clubs on their off nights, on Sunday nights or Tuesday and Monday nights. There was nothing doing. Myself and a bunch of very aggressive young men, ambitious men, we would print up invitations and we'd throw these parties. We'd create a little company. We never really incorporated. We pretended we were. You know, we called it Inc., but we just made that up. And we would sell 1,000 tickets for $10. And kids would come in and then, we would get the door and then the house would get the bar. But then we would sell weed and we'd sell, Quaaludes and different things. We had merch before merch was a term. You know what I mean? We had hats and all these kind of things. Whoever had a connection anywhere. And so we were making money. We make $2,500 twice a month at these parties. $5,000 in college, you're a millionaire.
It's a lot of money in college.
And so, but I used to buy drugs. I used to buy Quaaludes, cocaine, and we do some dealing and all this and that. So I always had. So, when you're a young man and you have a supply, you're very popular. And I wasn't really doing it as a business. I didn't think in terms of that. I just wanted to fuel a lifestyle. Now I moved to Manhattan. I moved to Long Island. My mom had a house. My father had passed away when I was 16. And I almost got killed driving into the city to go to work and then driving home. I literally went off the road. And I could have died. I mean, I feel like God took the wheel for a minute because I had stayed up all night before and I was doing cocaine and not sleeping and then trying to go to work all day and then smoking weed. And I just passed out in the car and it's a miracle I'm not dead. This happened many times in my life, but the answer for me wasn't you got to stop staying up all night and you got to stop using drugs. That wasn't even the question. It's the drive. I mean, who the hell is going to spend an hour and a half driving freaking home in traffic, in rush hour traffic in Manhattan? I got things to do. And oftentimes I went to work. Work was over, let's say, at 6. And then I was out till 2 in the morning, in the city. I couldn't do it. So I always just manage when there's a need in my life. I somehow manage. I can't explain it. It's a common story in the rooms amongst people that use alcohol and drugs. We just somehow get things done. If it has to do with our addiction, somehow we get it done. And I managed to get a really great apartment for very little money. And I was the first one of my friends. I'm out of school December of 78. I graduated 6 months early. It's a whole other story. And considering when I transferred to the University of Albany, SUNY Albany to the University of Maryland, I only had 6 credits.
For 1 year?
For a whole year. Supposed to have 30. And I still managed to get in and then finished with full boat of credits. I graduated with a bachelor's degree, December 78. By March 79, I already had an apartment in Manhattan. I lasted 60 days commuting. And I was the first one of my friends had an apartment, so everybody hung out at my apartment. And but it's expensive to be a player. I'll never forget when we first moved to Manhattan, we went to go to Studio 54, the very famous, most famous disco in the world. And we get to 54th, and my apartment was on 54th Street. And we get to the street, and there's at least 1,000 people outside. And there's the velvet ropes, and a guy sitting, picking people, a couple of guys at the door. And they would let a few people in, seemed like every hour, every half hour. 1,000 people on lined up on the streets. And couldn't figure out how to get in. And so we left and we went to another place. And the same thing at Xenon was another place. So we quickly found out from relationships, we had to figure out the game. How do you get in? I was never a wait on the line front door guy. We wanted to figure out how we could get in because we're cool and we want to get in. One of the reasons I got to the stock market is we had no cell phones. We had no Google. We had no internet. We had no computers. We had rotary dial phones if you wanted to communicate with somebody. I would see guys that would pull up in these fancy cars. Eventually, we learned how to get past the doorman. We learned the rap. We learned how to make friends. We would bring drugs and bribe the guys. And eventually found out where they lived. And one of the guys that ran the door at Studio 54 lived in my building. And so he used to just come and get weed from me all day. And when I came in, he'd be like, bro.
Bring him up.
And the funny thing is there'd be 1,000, more than that even, on the street waiting inside, 2,000. And he let me in, and there'd be like 20 people in the club. Very good marketing. I ended up becoming a big drug dealer at Studio 54 at night. I had a job during the day. But these guys would pull up in, Lambos and Rolls Royce limos, and they would be with these beautiful women, and they would walk right in, and they would get the best table, and they'd order the most expensive champagnes. And I'd be like, excuse me, who are you? I learned very early that successful men, or men that are not really successful, but seem to be successful, men like to talk about themselves. We really do. And so they would say, I'm a stockbroker, or I'm a trader, or I'm involved in risk arbitrage. Where do you work? J.P. Morgan, Oppenheimer, D.H. Blair. And we quickly figured out, myself and my close friends, that it seems the guys that had the most cash, the most money, that were the guys that we weren't interested in the doctors and the lawyers and the accountants. We were sales guys. A bunch of cool guys seemed to be making a lot of money in the stock market. And in the early 80s, something happened called Wall Street was introduced to Main Street. So prior to, the late 70s, if you wanted to open a stock account, you couldn't ever pitch it. Someone had to be in your presence. Someone had to seek you out. There was no soliciting. A bunch of very aggressive young guys called the Lehman Seven were sitting around the boardroom waiting for some rich guys to walk in. And they spoke to the FTC, Federal Trade Commission, and they asked, could they call on the phone and solicit securities? And the FTC said, well, we don't see why not. Isn't that crazy? And so they introduced that idea to Lehman Brothers, the compliance department. And very quickly, these 7 guys were cold calling. That never happened before in the history of the markets. So all of a sudden, people are just getting calls in their home from a bunch of guys saying, listen, we can help you get rich. I got a stock for you. Are you interested in making money? Have you ever invested in the stock market before? No, you don't need to be a millionaire. Let me tell you what we're going to do. You got 10,000? Okay. You want to turn that into 50,000? All these different things. It never happened before. So people were going hog wild. And then other firms saw what Lehman Brothers was having this huge success. They would guys lined up. And so then quickly it spread throughout the entire industry. So in the early 80s, young men like me were going down to Wall Street trying to get hired. There was only really 2 big training programs, the E.F. Hutton training program and the Merrill Lynch training program. These were This was like the Harvard and Yale of Wall Street. And I got in. I talked my way in. And so now my partying didn't slow down. If anything, it exacerbated. Now I'm going out. I'm a stockbroker. I still haven't made any money, but we're in suits and ties, and I'm hanging out with guys. I have access to men that are making millions. And so I would literally knock on doors and say, excuse me, how are you making $1 million? How'd you do $1 million last month? How'd you buy that car? It's $350,000, convertible Rolls Royce, 1984. And men love to talk about themselves. Now, some guys are tight, they don't want to reveal anything, et cetera. But we spoke about this earlier regarding podcasting and stuff. Mm-hmm. You find the right guys, we help each other. And I had a series of mentors that basically hooked me up, and I learned the ropes. And I loved going out and having a guy park my car and walking through the velvet ropes when there's 500 people waiting outside. And I loved getting the best table, or one of the best tables, and being able to order the most expensive champagne. It was shocking that I had so many gorgeous women around me.
You're a good-looking guy, Ross.
I was better looking when I looked a little bit like you, I swear to you. A shorter version, but maybe not quite, but I was cute. But I had a good rap. I'm making a lot of money. I'm very confident, and women are attracted to confidence. But I'm a raging drug addict. And I think alcohol, I was never really attracted to alcohol. It doesn't really taste great, but it's the thing you did. Like a Wall Street party was a bottle of Dewar's and some beer. That was it. No mixer. A bottle of Dewar's on a guy's table and some beer. I mean, I'm like, I drink vodka, I don't particularly love alcohol, and never really did, but it was a thing to do. I did love drugs.
Blow?
I was addicted to cocaine, and I couldn't stop. And, I thank God for cocaine, because if not, I probably would still be drinking, trying to figure it out. You know what I mean? I would have had much less of a life. But cocaine brought me to my knees. It brought me to my knees. I couldn't stop, but I hated the way it made me feel. I mean, it doesn't make any sense, right?
Yeah.
But I couldn't stop.
I can relate. 100%.
It started out very glamorous. In the clubs, in limos, little vials in my pocket, sharing it. And then it ended up with me, in a room by myself, paranoid. I don't even want to I can't move to go to the bathroom, and don't touch me. At first it was like a sex drug, and then it became like an isolating drug. Just like, they talk about in recovery, and I couldn't stop. And so eventually in 1990, at the urging of even my employer,
they knew.
Everybody. See, the funny thing is when I thought I was hiding it from everybody.
You didn't think anyone knew?
The whole world knew. In fact, I'll never forget when I got out of rehab, I went to there was a little cafe around the corner called Mulholland Drive Cafe. I was afraid to go there because that was my last spot. I couldn't be around a beautiful bar when I first got clean in New York. But if there was a few months, and I think I had a date, and we're meeting, I didn't know any other place to go. I was just going to AA. I was working all day. I would go to a noon meeting down on Wall Street, and I'd leave work, and I'd go to the gym, and I'd go to a little Greek diner, and I'd go to the 79th Street workshop. For like 2 years, that was my life. And it was great. It was better than all the private jets and, well, not all of it, but I had some good times.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I had a lot of fun. But, it was just, I had clarity all of a sudden. It took about a year, believe it or not. Mm-hmm. It took me almost a year. But in 90 days, I thought I was healed. I was speaking everywhere. I was so proud, counting my days.
You're in that pink cloud high.
Yeah. It lasted a long time. I still feel like I'm in a pink cloud. It gave me a life. Everything they say in the book is true. It's a life beyond your wildest dreams. For real. I mean, it's the promises, fear of financial insecurity will leave you. We will not regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it. That's the one that I said can't be. Can't be. We will not regret the past. I ended up in a church basement every day with no money, lost blew $30 million. I was sick. I couldn't walk a block without huffing and puffing and all this kind of thing. We will not regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it. You know, I would love to shut the door on my past, right? So how can that promise ever be true? And I learned in real life. One day you wake up and your life is so magnificent and you're sitting on a throne and you've achieved success and love and life is beyond your wildest dreams. And you realize if not for your past, this promise wouldn't be true. You can't get to that spot in life without your past, without being willing to embrace it, talk about it, share it. You know what I'm saying? Because that's how great life has to be for that promise to be true. And I woke up one day, I was at my beach house. I had my little daughter, Skylar, was 3. Little Sydney was just born. I have this magnificent wife, Stephanie, who we had the perfect life. And we had an apartment in Manhattan and traveling the world and my own brokerage firm, hop in my little 2-seater Mercedes, 4 cars, and driving through, getting an early jump on New York traffic, leaving at like 5:30 in the morning, just cutting through the Rockways, playing music loud. And I'm just looking at my life and I'm like, you know what? Thank God for my past. Thank God. Because everything that I built began with the foundation of my bottom. Without that bottom, there could be no top, no 3rd floor, 4th floor, 5th floor. So, you know, I did the work. I got well. Some would say I'm a narcissist. I wouldn't argue with that. I don't think it's such a terrible thing, really. I think a lot of it is positive.
Yeah.
I am empathetic. I have known love. So I'm not on the narcissist scale all the way. I'm not a narc like some people say. There's a term, you know, if the disease gets really to some extent where you can't even experience true love and all these different things. I've had all that. I have 2 daughters that I love more than anything in the world. I chop off my arms for them. And an ex-wife who's my best friend and a business partner, someone I'll always love. So, you know, my whole experience in business was fuel for my addictions. Because, you know, I learned later that I was addicted to more. When I speak, my drug of choice is more. Whatever makes me feel great at the moment and whatever helps me not feel pain or uncomfortable feelings, which is what all sobriety is about. It's introducing you to feelings you'd rather not feel and experience because they hurt. You know, it's painful. And it introduces to God. You understand that we're all just God's children. And, you know, I believe in the Creator. I choose to call my higher power God. I don't want to offend anybody or turn anybody away. But there's got to be something in the world greater than you. That's what they taught me. Something in the world. I said, how could that be true? Nothing's greater than me.
I'm the greatest thing in the world, yeah.
Right. I said, you know, Kevin, the world can't revolve around you because it revolves around me. but you know, these are things that we learn, we're taught. You know, it's also helped me in business, you know. At first, when I got clean in 1990, people thought you were like a freak. There was no one was going to AA. The program wasn't cool. People, it was really, you would sneak there. And people would say, what do you mean, you don't drink? I said, no. They said, what about if you got married? What about having a party Saturday night? You're not going to have a drink? I don't understand. People say, I didn't understand. You know, what do you mean you don't understand? I don't understand. And, you know, we talked, I don't want to break anybody's anonymity. We spoke earlier about some people we know in common. And, on Wall Street, it was a very, very fragile thing at first. And then eventually, I must have taken 100 Wall Streeters or more, personally, 100, personally.
To meetings?
Got them sober. I was a big sponsor. I ran meetings. I ran groups, and big book studies. I did all that.
That's amazing.
That was my life, bro. And from that life, I ended up, building companies and, making Forbes list and, having disciples. That's what they said at my trial much later. And I was a cult leader. They thought, hey, it was a cult. I said, I understand. You more comfortable having a bunch of guys that are drinking and taking drugs with your money and maybe doing drugs like cocaine and staying out all night, and drinking from a bottle all day. You wouldn't rather have somebody that's reliable and honest and is practicing the truth and working on his relationship with God and family. But it's twisted. It's twisted.
And you want to call him a cult leader.
That's what they did. I'm a cult leader. They were very uncomfortable, the regulators, with me when I got clean.
Yeah. How did you manage to blow $30 million in the active addiction?
If I tell you, spending money is very easy. Spending money is very easy. And I can't tell you that I bought property and I did all that. But in the process, I ended up with nothing. But really, I spent it on fun, risky things. I owned horses. I was flying in private jets in 1986, 1985, going to Vegas, blowing $100,000 in a weekend, treating my boys to a weekend in Boca Raton in Miami. I had a cocaine dealer named John Lennon. Johnny, I hope you're listening to this somewhere. I mean, his real name was John Lennon legally. It was crazy.
Wild.
It was wild. But we used to have a lot of fun. And then in October of 1987, the stock market crashed. They call it Black Monday. And the Dow Jones, which was the market at the time, really, there wasn't even a NASDAQ at that time, just it was over the counter. Went down over 25% in one day. It never happened here before. It never happened in any. They stopped answering phones at the stock exchange. They just stopped answering phones. There was no buying. And, as a result of that, there's all kinds of new rules came into place, trading rules. And then again, in 2000, there was another crash, the dot-com crash. WorldCom, the biggest company in the world, went to zero. Fraud. Enron, the fourth biggest company, went to zero. Lucent Technologies, an A+ rated Bell company, went from 82 to zero. Amazon, the company we know and love today, Jeff Bezos' inauguration, went from $330 to $3 in 2 weeks. It was a serious correction, right? The dot-com crash, end of the world, second time, part two. But I was ready for it at that point in time because I had learned from my experience in 1987. Then in 08, 09, it was the mortgage crisis, right? Too big to fail. The whole banking system failed. All these big banks failed. And the United States government blamed me. At my trial, the prosecution, the United States attorney for the Southern District of New York pointed a finger at me, looked at the jury and said, that's the man responsible. That's why you don't have a job. And the judge is sitting there like it's okay. Everything we said, can't say that, too prejudicial. Sorry, Mr. Hoffman, can't go there. But the government was allowed to just bullshit, just like what they did to Trump. 78-year-old former president of the United States, 78 years old, perfectly clean record, all of a sudden has committed 92 felonies in all these different cases. You show me the man, I'll show you the crime. That's what Stalin's general counsel said in Russia. And this is what's happening in the United States. They call it lawfare. They actually have coined the term. I was a victim of lawfare. But spending money is quite easy. I'm sure if you speak to any women out there, you ladies understand. You stop going to Express and you start going to Prada, you start going to Chanel. You a handbag, say buy a handbag for $30,000, one handbag that she'll carry, 6 times a year because she's too scared to carry it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
My shoes were handmade by Olga Berluti, $3,000 a pair. I'm wearing Rolex watches, the best of the best of the best. This was 100,000, this is 150,000. My car was 150,000. I had 4 of them, like that kind of thing. It's very easy to spend money.
What happened on Black Monday, the story?
Black Monday was just crazy. It came in. So I had a feeling. I had a very, very onerous feeling. Now I'm still using, but I'm maybe it was paranoia from coke, but I don't think so. I started feeling that things were really too good to be true. And the hair on my neck was up every day. Since I came into the stock, but whatever I bought just went up. Imagine, and I'm very good at relationships, and I have hundreds and hundreds of relationships. And you guys maybe sent me 25,000, and now you have like 600,000 in your account. So when I call you, it's like when you see me, it's like God. And when I call you, whatever you want, Ross, whatever you say, whatever you want to do, everything just seemed really surreal to me. I didn't get it. And so the place where I was working, this place, D.H. Blair, were doing these sort of small deals where they controlled the price, they controlled everything. And there was a lot of pressure being put on me. I didn't feel comfortable with it. I didn't really know a lot of the things that were being pushed on me was scammy, but I just felt very uncomfortable. And Prudential Base, which is an old line, big insurance name, they were big in the capital markets, and the big firms were all looking at me. And they offered me $300,000 upfront check. And they offered me an office. So the Long Island Railroad, 2 Penn Plaza. You come up the escalator, you go down the escalator, right there in Madison Square Garden. I have the biggest office with the windows staring at 7th Avenue at the escalator going up and down on the Long Island Railroad. And they had a box in Madison Square Garden. They offered me access to the box whenever I wanted it for the Knicks, the Rangers, concert shows, whatever they had going on there. $300,000 up front. And all I had to do was move my business to them. And it's a big name. And all the guys in the office were kissing my ass because they're recruiting me. So I signed the deal. I interviewed with people August, September of 87. And October 1st of 1987, I signed the deal with Paul Ruthfield and Abe Borenstein. I even remember the names.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't remember that so many details. It's really interesting, but I've been telling this story, and for some reason, it's right there. I signed the deal to move my whole business to go to Prudential Base Securities. Now, back in those days, it was just the beginning of real computers and all these things. We still had snail mail and all that. So I had to, over the course of weeks, fill out these forms. I had like 500 accounts or more that I want to transfer from Blair to Prudential. And I had to send them in the mail, and they have to send them back signed to my operations department. Then they have to put them in a system, and it takes about 3-4 weeks to get all the accounts over, including my own account, which had millions in it. Millions. And I had a lot of money in the bank, a few million, several million. But I had 30 million in my stock account. It was so at that time. And I resigned from D.H. Blair and started October 1st, 1987 at Prudential. I'll never forget, I deposited this $300,000 check, which wasn't all that much money to me at the time. But I liked the idea that Prudential was going to stand behind me and not make sure that there were no problems from D.H. Blair. Because D.H. Blair at the time was its own member firm, but the clearing firm was Prudential. And Prudential says, we got you. I was indemnified. They were going to stand behind me. No one's going to give me a problem. My account's going to be, within a month, I have all my accounts. I got $300,000 to last me for the month. I was doing that kind of business. because I couldn't write trades for a month because the accounts were in hyperspace. They were somewhere between the two firms on the computers. That's October 1st, 1987. I signed a deal, 300,000 clears. I buy like an ounce of Coke. I'm the man. I got a beautiful apartment. I'm single. I don't have any sort of baggage with me. And life is really good, but I still have a weird feeling. I come to work that Monday morning. I love Mondays. I live for Mondays even to today. Today's Monday, right? Monday is always to me a great day because it means I'm starting my week. And I believe if you start good on Monday, by Friday, you're success. I was never one of those guys that procrastinated in business because to me, business meant money, and money fueled my addictions. And the market opened down. But, that's what happens every day. It's another day. Market's going down. Now it's a rough morning. Things are going down. Like, what? And this is one of the craziest things. So there was a guy in the office next to me who was a big stud at Prudential Beige. Black guy, about 6'2", maybe 6'3", a big guy, maybe 270 pounds, was a former football player. His first name was Edgar. I can't think of his last name. I've been trying for days. And Edgar had a big office next to my 2 Penn Plaza. I had the biggest one. And it was all separated by glass and lucite. You could see. He could see me. I could see him. Now, some of the offices had like level doors, like blue blinds, and you could, close it, but they kept open and you were not supposed to, during trading hours, close them. After hours, guys did what they did, and that's how I romance my wife sometimes in the office after work. But I was sober at that time.
You dog.
I'm a dog. I am. Was a dog. Been a dog. Probably still a dog. So the market starts to really drop, and I got people calling me up. This is down. That's down. And I'm staring at the computer, the quote. And like, can you please sell? We got to get out of this thing. It's going. Stocks went from like $20 to $2, and everybody's on margin. Everyone's on borrowed money. Your account's not here. We just put it in for transfer. It's not here yet. I'm fighting with the Prudential guys, the operation guys, offering them money, bribing them. I can't even sell. But the point is, even if you went to sell, there was no one to buy. They just stopped buying. They stopped answering the phones. There was very little electronic trading in those days. A lot of it you would write tickets and they would send them in and you call them in and like that, old school. And somewhere in the afternoon, we kept thinking there's going to be a bounce. There usually is. And in the normal trading day, they'll like open up. Everyone buys. By the end of the day, push it down. Or it goes down, and then people sell, and then they pick it back up. They try and get you out to sell, and they induce you to buy at the high, and they induce you to sell at the low, and that's the street, right? So I'm like, what the fuck? And everybody's in a panic. I'll never forget, I went to the bathroom at some point, and Edgar was next to me. It was a urinal. Standing there. I'm like, bro. I said, I'm fucked, bro. I'm fucked. Unless something comes, I can't even sell anything. I can't even get my own money. I don't know what's going on. I have no idea. There's no value. And this guy was, Edgar was to me at least, he loved me. I'm a people guy and I'm just a guy. I'm not a threat to him in any way. I'm a new broker. I came in. He was he knew I was a big producer. He extended himself to me a lot. He helped me out with these papers and I didn't know anything how to handle the system. A lot of systems in those days. Today, everything's like boom. You learn how you get on the computer and boom, boom, boom. In those days, we had things to figure out, procedures. He really was a great help to me. I really liked this man. He was an older gentleman, younger than I am now. He was probably in his 50s. I was 30 in 1987. And he was like 52. Every dime that he had and that his family had, his church had, was all in the market. And he was really affected. But we all were that day. Everybody's worried about themselves, their money, their customers. What can I do? I can't do anything. I didn't understand God and faith and belief and understand shit happens, whatever. I was a godless creature at this point. It was 3 years before I got sober. This crash was a big nail in my coffin, my addiction coffin. And thank God. I never thought I would survive it, believe it or not. At some point, I remember we went to the bathroom. It was like maybe 2:00. We had a big meeting. Everybody was trying to say, do your best to tell your customers and hold their hands and let them know this is something happened in Europe. It's an anomaly. It's going to be okay. But they're not answering the phone. They're telling us to get on the phone, to answer the phone for our customers, but no one at the firm, no one at the stock exchange is answering the phone. And so we didn't know what to say. We just watched this thing go straight down. And we see big prints going, big prints. I mean, prints of blocks of stock to trade. So we're not selling anything, but someone's selling. That's what drives the market down. All selling, no buying. And at some point, I looked next to me, and it looks like Edgar's praying. He's bent over his desk like this, like the computer, like, oh God, I can't even look at it. But everybody's worried about themselves. He had a heart attack at his desk, and he died.
That day?
Yeah, right. And I was see where you're sitting? This is how close I was to him. There was a big plexiglass window between us.
You were 6 feet from him.
Yeah, literally. But he was bending over. I looked like he was praying, or he just said, fuck it. I'm just going to take a nap. And nobody knew it for hours. I mean, hours. Because even at 4:00 when the market stopped trading, the phones are ringing like crazy. The customers are calling, help, Ross, please help me. Help me. It's all my money. Help me. Help me. Nothing I could do. And the truth is, I was more worried about my customers than I was worried about myself.
Yeah.
I knew I was fucked. I knew it, but I know how to make money. I'm not going to worry about that. I was worried about these customers. What am I going to say? Well, I got 500 people I got to talk to, and I can't even answer intelligently. I like to say, I say to my guys in business, I said, communication is the most important thing in life and in business. I said, I can handle anything if I know. I can't handle what I don't know. So if I could handle good, bad, and ugly, as long as I know, but I'm not a mind reader. I can't handle what I don't know. I can't solve what I don't know. I cannot process. So talk to me. Talk to me. If we're friends, talk to me. If I, something going on in business, what happened? Tell me. I can't just read your emotions and your facial expressions, et cetera. I need to know. So that was someday. And that was, by the way, Geordie Belfort, The Wolf of Wall Street, as it's expressed in the film, is a true story. That was his first day as a registered broker.
Yeah.
At least he didn't have 500 guys worth $400 million that by the time the accounts came in, they were down to like 30 or 40 million. My 30 million was left at that point was maybe 27 million, 26 million, was down to like 2 million. I had more money in my checking account. I thought I was finished. It's funny because your financial, your understanding of the world was very different when you live in that world. Like to other people, you're rich. Wow. And I didn't even have any expenses really. I lived by myself in a 2-bedroom apartment in Manhattan. You know what I mean? I had a car and a driver, but you know what I mean? Down to 2 million. I'm hit. I'm a punk. I'm a disaster. But you think sick, it's sick, By the time I went into AA, I was $1 million in debt. And I had 4,000 cash. I hadn't paid rent in 4 or 5 months, even though I had the money. I just couldn't bring myself to do it. And it was like I hadn't filed taxes for the year. And that year I made like, $1,900,000. and I have money, and I just couldn't deal with it. I just said, I said, you know what? It was to go see the accountant, start dealing with taxes. We just go to the hospital, go to Silver Hill and try to get well for $1,100 a day.
So when you get sober and clean, a lot of people, whenever people get sober and clean, and you hear this a lot in the rooms, it's very daunting in the beginning because you're at the bottom of the hill looking up. It's a tall order, right? To get clean and sober, you gotta, rectify things in your life, all the damage and wreckage of the past. What did you do? I mean, you're $1 million in debt. You at one point made $30 million 3-4 years prior.
I had $30 million. I made a lot more.
Okay,
right.
So you had, there you go,
30.
even better.
Right.
What did you do to get through? You said that first year was the best year of your life, or some. I think you said the beginning was a fun time, clean and sober. How did you make it such a great time when you're at the bottom of the hill there looking up?
When I'm asked to speak, I speak, and I used to speak a lot. And if I can help just one person, then I'll do it. Nobody ever came into the rooms because they were on a roll. I never heard of anybody. I never witnessed it. Never spoke to anybody. They said, "Oh yeah, I was rolling." So I checked myself into rehab and went to AA. You know what I mean? And I can't stand people that try and like pretend. I meet guys all the time say, "Yeah, I went to rehab. I just went to." Are you kidding me, bro? And I literally just went to detox. I just said, I just need to get away from the coke. I need to go somewhere where they don't have an open bar, and there's no drug dealers, limo drivers that I can get a hold of. I just need a place. I didn't know about AA. I didn't know about the 12 steps. I knew nothing about this. I just know that I need to just get my thoughts together. I can't think straight where I'm at. And so, and they don't have an open bar. Like I was shocked when I checked in and they searched me and I had all kinds of things stashed and all that. I'm like, my intention was good, but I was a drug addict. I can't go anywhere without all these Valiums and all these different things. And they take everything, but I was in a hospital. So they said, I'm not going to die. I said, I'm going to die if I don't take all this. But they said, just relax. And so I checked in. And when I was introduced to the room, to the meetings, I didn't want to go to the meetings. When I finally went to the meeting, when I walked into the room, I'll never forget this. I was fighting, the security had to force me to leave my room and to go to the first meeting. And I walk in and there's like 150 people. It's in New Canaan, Connecticut. It's a very upscale area, right? They have people from Darien, all these different beautiful areas of Connecticut come to give back. So they host these meetings at Silver Hill for OA, GA, AA, CA. And I walk in and there's people are hugging each other and touching each other and looking each other in the eye. And I'm studying. I've always been that kind of guy. That's how I've always gotten through my life. I observe people and I'm shocked. Everybody's eyes are wide open. And people are hugging and touching. And I hadn't felt that way in a while. By the time I went to rehab, I was really fucked up. I would be alone in my apartment. I'd be smoking angel dust, smoking crack, drinking. Not hardly drinking, but drinking, To me, hardly drinking is like
Yeah.
the average alcoholic
yeah.
party. But to make a long story short, I wanted what they had. It was very similar to me when I moved to New York or when I went to college. When I went to high school, I saw what people had that I wanted. I saw guys dating the hot girls, driving cool cars. I saw men wearing great suits and getting into clubs. I saw people that were just relaxed and touching each other in a friendly way. When I came in here, we hugged, right? I got a hug for 3 years before I got clean. I was just so, I can't even really describe it. I was just fucked up. I was so alone, isolated. And I just observed and I listened to the speaker. And I thought they identified to everything. I thought they were talking about me. Later on, I would pick my first sponsor because he had a red Ferrari. His name was Duncan. I shouldn't say. I can't say names. Duncan. And pulled up in a red Ferrari. He was really good looking. He was dressed really nice. I liked the way he put himself together. And all the women wanted him, you know. And that's why I picked my first sponsor. I wanted what he had. And it's a good thing now, because what I wanted is to fit in, to be a part of this new club, this new crowd. And it was good for me. It was a challenge. I needed something to aspire to, because Ross was dying. Ross was dying. I hit bottom. And I can handle a lot of pain. I hit bottom. And as a human being, I hit bottom. Like, I never killed myself, right? And I never really attempted suicide officially, you know. But I asked a lot of these people, when I was writing, I wrote a book called Rock Solid, available for sale on rossmandell.com. I would ask people, did you ever pray to God that you wouldn't wake up in the morning? Did you ever ask God? I've asked a lot of people in the rooms this even, that you don't wake up in the morning. And I was shocked. They're like, I asked people in prison, did you ever pray to God that you just wouldn't wake up in the morning? I thought everybody would say, of course they did. And like, everywhere where I asked, people said, of course not. And I did it 1,000 times. 1,000 times. I might be lowballing you by 1,000. For real. There were so many times in my life I just prayed to God that I wouldn't wake up in the morning. I can handle a lot of pain. And so all of a sudden, I'm sort of on this new adventure. You know, minutes from being homeless, and I was a rich, big ball stockbroker that everybody thought was, you know, this huge guy, and I was. And it's a new adventure. I figured my life is fucked anyway. Everybody's talking all this great stuff about the program. I'll never forget that first night when I bought in. I started reading the big book, and I read Bill's story, and it was like God was speaking to me. Let me tell you why. Who was Bill Wilson, the founder of AA, in case you guys don't know? He was a New York stockbroker who hit bottom. Who was Ross Mandell? A New York stockbroker who hit bottom. I couldn't believe it. I felt God was talking to me. Who's the co-founder? Dr. Bob, a physician from Akron, Ohio, a doctor, a stockbroker and a respected doctor, founded this program. All my life, I pictured AA, a bunch of guys sleeping on a park bench in the Bowery, the worst section of New York, in case you guys don't know. All of a sudden, I'm seeing things through a different lens. And I grabbed onto something, and it's what I say is the most important emotion in the world. People say to me, what's the most important emotion? Everyone says love, love, love. I don't think so. It's hope. All of a sudden, there's hope. There's 100 people in this room that are all gathered that look lovely. You know, Connecticut, they dress like they're from Connecticut, you know, a little preppy and a little understated. But you can tell that they have money, and the women have frosted their hair, and, you know, the guys have a certain kind of clothes. I noticed all these different things. They look like they walked out of the Abercrombie and Fitch, you know, showroom. And I said, maybe there's hope. I lost everything. I don't have anyone that I really love. My last girlfriend left me because I couldn't stay clean. The funny thing, her name was Hope. And I related to your story that we spoke about earlier. I just couldn't get it together. I loved it. I just couldn't keep it together. You know, I couldn't stop. And I swore I would stop. And I meant it. I literally meant it. As God is my witness, I meant it. But I couldn't. And so I had hope all of a sudden. I go to this hospital just to dry out, to get my thoughts together. How am I going to take care of my taxes? What am I going to do for my career? All these different, how am I going to solve these problems? I couldn't even think about it. And all of a sudden I'm introduced to hope. And one of the things you don't know is I was a benzodiazepine addict. I was taking 20 to 30 10 milligram Valiums, the blues, every day, plus drinking, plus doing drugs, all kinds of other drugs. I had become a real benzo addict. And you can't just withdraw from that.
No, you could die.
That's why I tried to smuggle them in and then they took them away. And I said, no, you can't. He said, you don't realize I could die. They said, we understand this. You're in a hospital. I said, you don't understand. You know, they didn't have Google, but you know, you can get a grand mal seizure and there's all kinds of things written about all these different things or whatever. And I had seizures when I was withdrawing. I had hope. I'm going to say I never had hope that I could have the life beyond my wildest dreams. And then by that, I figured that I've already peaked. I'm 30 and I peaked. And now I learned at 67, I'm just getting started. There's no peak. We live in God's world, not our own world. But so you asked me how. So when I got out, I had no money. I was struggling. Nobody wanted to hire me. Big balls, Ross Mandell, making millions, being recruited by every firm on the street. Nobody wanted to go near me. I was radio fucking active. Why? I was in AA. Steve K, God bless him. He's passed away. He's really good friends with a guy that we both know. And was his sponsor. Was my first sponsor. So when I got out of rehab, and I love to share this, this was a changing point in my life. Please listen to me. If anybody's listening. I was raised, you're a man, you stand on your own 2 feet. We don't make excuses. We work hard, we provide. Things go wrong, we don't blame anybody. You be a man, you don't cry. You don't hurt people, but you don't, if you're hurt, you don't ever reveal it. Never let anybody see you sweating. Take care of your family. Everything is your responsibility. Be a man, take it on your shoulders. And here I am, about to be released after completing a 28-day program when the whole medical staff calls me in and says, Mr. Mandel, we want you to stay. Now, obviously, I had great insurance and I had an American Express card, even though I stopped paying the bill. They didn't know. I had this great insurance because I was a Wall Street guy and the firm I was with, and they couldn't, cancel my insurance, so they tried. They said, you have no chance of staying clean. We want you to stay here. We want you to stay and do 90 days. I said, I love you guys. You don't know me. I got to go. And I did make an agreement that I would go to a meeting or two every day. I was going to go to the gym. They gave me phone number. There's no Google. There was no cell phones. There was no computer. So it was all like, call this guy. You have tax issues. We have sober accountants. He'll help you with the government. Call this woman. She's a psychologist. She'll help you with issues that you might have regarding whatever. These are a list of the meetings. It's a meeting book. These are where you live. This is where we think you should go. There's a morning meeting. There's an afternoon meeting. Wall Street. They gave me great resources. Silver Hill Foundation is the shit. If you have trouble, get in there. It's expensive.
Silver Hill is top of the line.
Top shelf, though.
Them, Karen, like they're like the...
Yeah. They really walked me down. I went through, seizures. It took them 21 days to detox me. 21 days of the 28-day program. I was still getting little, and then ground zero. And I did it, and so I have a friend. He picks me up. They had cleaned out my apartment. They had found tons of stuff. Tons of fucking drugs, even had some cash, thank God, stashed. I didn't even remember. I did not even know about. 3/4 of the stuff they found, they didn't even know, but they threw it all out. They had the money. They gave me some money. And he says, your money. I said, what's this for? So, he said, it was in one of your pockets and this and that. I said, all right, thank you. They took me to Midtown. There's a meeting called Midtown on Park Avenue and 60th Street. It was like a 6 o'clock meeting. And I stood up. I was instructed to do this. And this was something that changed my life. Is there anybody new or from out of town that would like to introduce themselves or say hello to the group? I got up. I stood up. Said, hi, my name is Ross. I just got out of the Silver Hill Foundation, completed a 28-day program. I'm a drug addict, and I'm pretty sure I'm an alcoholic. And frankly, I don't know anybody in this city that's not a drug user, a drug addict, a drug dealer. And I don't know one person that's even remotely sober. So if any of you would be kind enough to share with me a phone number, so if I have an issue or a problem, I really don't want to pick up. I really want to stay clean today. And everybody said all these nice words. At the end of the meeting, 20 people, 30 people came at me. Beautiful looking women, good looking men. Here's my number. Give me a call here. This, here's that. What do you like? Making all these plans. I said, okay. Then my friends took me out to dinner. And then I went to what became my home group, the 79th Street Workshop. 10 o'clock meeting. It's a beginner's meeting. First, I didn't sleep my whole first year. I don't think I slept more than 1 hour a night because I was addicted to Valium. And they told me what happened. And I said, what am I going to do? And they said, Mr. Mandel, nobody ever died from lack of sleep in the history of mankind. I thought I was going to die because I need drugs. Your disease lies to you. You have a disease that's centered in the middle of your brain. I love when people say, I don't really need the meetings. I'm going to do this on my own. What part of your sick brain are you going to use to heal your sick brain? Doesn't happen. So I stood up. I said the same speech. Can anybody help me? I will tell you the same thing. People rushed to my side. 15 people took me out for coffee. I remember at the end of the night, it was me, this one guy who has now found me on Facebook, and we're friends on Facebook again. He had gone out and all kinds of things. He remembers me from that night. Andrew, what's up, baby? And 6 women. And they treated me. And 3 of the women was so beautiful to me. I fell in love with women at the drop of a hat when I first got clean. And they would say to me, how much time do you have? I'd say 43 days. They said, you're a really good looking, you're a really cute guy. I want you to reach out to me if you still feel this way when you have 12 months. I swear to God, it's a true story. But I end up, 3 of the 6 that I met my first night end up becoming girlfriends over time, over the first 2 years. I mean, like relationships for 3, 4 months, 5 months like that. And I'll never forget this one girl. She comes up to me. I was sure that I was madly in love with her, and I couldn't live without her. I was about 6, 7 weeks sober. I saw her speak, and I waited to the end. I was strategizing what I was going to say, and I wrote down my number. And I was chairing a meeting at the 79th Street Workshop.
Beginners meeting?
Chaired that meeting.
Yeah.
On and off for 2 years, Mm-hmm. And this girl comes up to me. She goes, hi, Ross. Do you remember me? And I was sure I couldn't live without her. I fell in love with her. I did not recognize her. No, I'm not great with faces. I'll say that. But she was okay. She was an attractive woman, She goes, let me tell you who I am. My name is, and you asked me out when you had 6 weeks clean. And I told you, get back to me when you have a year. Now you have almost 2 years. You still feel the same way. And I felt so bad because I did not. I didn't even know who she was, and I wasn't the least bit attracted to her. I'm being honest now, yeah. And it goes to show you that the wisdom that has been compiled through sort of the 100 years that AA has been in existence, a little under 90 years, let's say, a little maybe more than 90. 1935 was published, the book. 90 years exactly. That wisdom is true wisdom. Everything I've ever heard or been told that's considered AA wisdom is fact, is truth. That's my experience. You know, as we're talking here, this is my experience. You have an experience, but for me, it's these $1 million nuggets. You could bet your bank on them. And for me, you asked me how I felt. I lost all my money. I was $1 million in debt. I'll never forget I couldn't afford a cab to go to the meeting at Southern National. I lived at 63rd Street between 2nd and 3rd at the Renoir House. And I hadn't paid rent. And I was being evicted and I was fighting. And I had to go down to Wall Street. No one wanted to hire me. No one wanted to give me any money because I had to go to a meeting at noon for an hour. And I was so filled with vitality and hope. And I look back and I recognize that there's nothing that's not possible. Well, you're living and you're breathing. Because we live in God's world. We do not live in our own world. And for those of you who don't believe in God, that's okay. And if you just wake up every day and think that this is your life, whatever it is, good, bad, or ugly, we're all three, and you live on this rock, this just happens to be a planet that orbits a sun, you know, I feel for you. I would examine it. So, you know, I was in prison recently. And, you know, once again, I cite God's will. All my life, I used to say, I wish I had time to read Shakespeare and Chaucer and all these biographies that I wanted to read of famous men like Churchill and Einstein and Washington and Adams and Isaac Newton. I wish I could read, you know, books. I wish I had the time because I like to read, but I'm always moving and doing, and I got business things to read and this and that, and I don't have the time to sit back and read 1,000-page books and 600-page books, which is something I love to do. And that whole year, my first year that I got sober, because I couldn't sleep, I literally read the Old Testament, the New Testament. I read the Quran. I studied Hindi and Taoism, and I was a Buddhist for a year, all these different things. I tried all these different things. But I prayed my whole life that someday I would have time to read all these famous authors that since the beginning of time. And God heard me, and he put me in prison. I did 8 years inside. And I love guys, they say they went to prison. I read like 100 books. I read one book every 3 days, literally. And one time I was in a lockdown because of the COVID thing and all that. And there was nothing. I was in a place where there was no library, I had no access. And somebody left a book and I stuffed it under my shirt. And I took it back to my cell because we're locked in 3 days in a row, 23 hours a day, 23 hours and 55 minutes a day. It's horrible. And it was a book I never would have looked at in my life, but it was a Pulitzer Prize winning book from like 30 years ago. It was like a weird book. And I read it. It was one of the best books I've read in my life. And so I called up my friends and I said, listen, I want you to send me every Pulitzer Prize book from these 5 years. And then I called another friend. I said, I want you to send me. All of a sudden I get mail call. They knock on my cell. I said, Mr. Mandell, I don't know what's going on, but you're like 25 books. You're only allowed 5 at a time. So which 5 you want? And I read all the Pulitzer Prize winning books for all these different years. This is why I was inside. And I was laughing to myself thinking, God was listening all these years. I mean, you didn't have to take me so literally. So there's so much greatness that you can experience in this world. But the most important thing, I think, is to understand who you are, what drives you, what interests you, and anything is possible. But the absence of hope, I don't understand what life could be like. I would love to meet somebody that's intelligent enough. Like, the reason I brought up the biographies is that my belief in God, I said, who is the smartest guy in the history of my life? Who would the world say is the smartest guy? I have to say probably Albert Einstein, right? I went with him. Now that I'm smarter, I've learned there's, maybe Sir Isaac Newton. People said he was maybe the smartest guy. But Einstein was, from, 150 years ago, not from, early 1900s, right? Not too long ago. Jewish guy. Let me read. I read like 3 biographies of Albert Einstein. And he says, without a shadow of a doubt, and he unraveled more mysteries of life in the universe than any human being in history. He says, without a shadow of a doubt, this world was created. Our world was created 100%. He says, like, take a vial of a beaker full with ink, or a cup full with ink, and spill it on the floor. And what comes out is the 5 books of Moses. That's the same chance of a big bang happening and all this. He says, this universe, this world was created. And that's how we unraveled the mysteries of light and mass and his theory of relativity and some of the other things that he's uncovered. There's a creator. He chooses to call the creator God. And so he's smarter than me. So I say, you know what? AA says, power greater than myself. If God was good enough for Einstein, he's good enough for me. And that's part of how I found, I came to peace with the fact that there has to be a power greater than myself. And so hope. I mean, bro, what do we have if we have no hope? And the times that I prayed, I would not wake up in the morning, which were often, I got through them. You get through them. You just have to do your best. I've learned, and I'm 67 years old, and I wouldn't miss a day of this life, even though there's been a lot of pain, a lot of challenge, a lot of days I could have done without.
Of course.
But, it's an adventure from birth to death. And, I love what the people, they say, your tombstone's going to say 1957 I was born. There's a dash, maybe 2040, whatever it is. It's what you do with that dash that counts, right? It's what you do with that dash. And, because thanks to some of the blessings I've had in my life, I've had a great life.
You experienced prison in sobriety.
Correct.
How did that happen?
That was a big question for me, I have to say. And I like to say like this, when I really want to get clear with these things, I learned there's a very big difference between being clean. This might piss people off, between being clean and being sober. So clean means the absence of mind-altering substances in your body, alcohol, benzodiazepines, cocaine, heroin, all the different things. Sober encompasses so much more, I've learned. So you can't even consider the concept of sobriety unless you're clean. Hence, when you go into a meeting, if you've had a drink or a mind-altering drug, we ask you not to speak. You're welcome. Please come in. At some of the early meetings, they served alcohol because otherwise nobody would come. But we don't want to hear from you today. But if you have one day clean, we'd love to hear from you, the most important person in the room, right? That white chip person. So I know that I was clean, but I can't say that I was sober. I think I made a lot of decisions that I look back on that resulted in what I called me going to prison. So it wasn't like I was walking down the street. I saw a woman with a handbag. I grabbed the handbag and 2 police officers happened to see me and they arrested me and put me in prison. I had 40 FBI agents storm my investment bank and stock brokerage business at 110 Wall Street on November the 6th, 2006, with guns. And they had called all the New York press in the lobby. And they came in, and this guy took me and threw me up against the wall and said, if you give me the drugs and the guns, it's going to go a lot easier on you. I was at a board meeting with a former United States senator, former United States congressman, my chairman, who was a solicitor in England, a chartered accountant, which is a lawyer, barrister, chartered accountant, and a parliamentary appointee for 30 years in England, and the Queen Mother's date for 30 years. Another member of parliament, former member of parliament, and a multimillionaire who was retired and a genius, graduate from MIT, Harvard, et cetera, wrote 22 books. And they're looking for guns and drugs. I said, what the fuck are you talking about? And he saw my reaction, and they looked around, and they told me to leave my office. And I see him on the phone, probably yelling at the United States attorney, saying, I don't know what the fuck you were told, but this is bullshit. Then they come back and they said, Mr. Mandel, we're here to execute a search warrant. So we're going to take down everybody's name and number. We're going to ask you all to leave. And we're just here to collect documents. Here's a search warrant. I'm not a lawyer, but I looked at it, and he said, nobody's getting arrested. We're not closing you down. I said, I don't understand. So what's this all about? Well, we're just here to execute a search warrant. Why couldn't you just ask us for documents? Every time we've ever had to comply with, we're regulated, highly regulated. I'm a CEO of 2 public companies at this time, with thousands of shareholders. You're publicly rating our place. The entire New York media, which is the whole world, the biggest media in the world, is in my lobby. How'd they find out about this if you didn't bring them in? And nobody's getting arrested? There's no crime that you see? In fact, almost 3 years goes by before anyone ever gets arrested or charged. And in the meantime, I'm told that I'm not going to get arrested or indicted. But the second they came in, they acted as judge, jury, and executioner. Who's going to do business with a brokerage firm when the government is publicly declared as an issue? Right? Those are advanced credit on a trade. You don't settle things immediately. You buy me $10 million worth of stock. They settle back office to back office. Mm-hmm. It became very difficult to do business. Eventually, I sold my firm, made a lot of money, and the buyers went to the government, and the government said, Mr. Mandel's okay, we're not going to indict him, and we're not going to indict the firm. Trade went through. I left the business. I started a fight league down in Boca. I was very happy. Life was good. It wasn't until the 08-09 Too Big to Fail when everything failed, and the government said to its prosecutors, go find us some cases. We're going to find some people to blame. Because nobody at Goldman Sachs got arrested. Nobody at Citibank got arrested. Nobody at any of the big banks or any of the big brokerage firms that got bailed out for the tune of trillions of dollars. My little company didn't fail, didn't need any government assistance, but they needed people to blame. That's lawfare in today's world. And so the SEC made a big announcement at the end of 09 that they filed more cases than ever before in their history. And they should be awarded for that. Meanwhile, everything failed. The whole system failed. And nobody got arrested but guys like me that weren't affiliated with what they call the deep state today. But nobody understood that in 08-09 with 10. I went to trial at 11. I spent $3.2 million hard money out of pocket. They made me put up $5 million in bail. Then they raised it to $7 million. When I was convicted, the appellate court said, he's not going to jail. Mr. Mandel will be allowed to stay out throughout his entire course of appeal. They were hoping I would make a deal. Nobody wins bail pending appeal. Nobody. In the history of America, it's been granted like 7 times. And all 7 times, no one went to jail. But they wanted me to plead guilty to something. And I spoke to my wife. I said, should I just make a deal? He said, what are you going to do? You want to rat somebody out? You want to ruin somebody else's life like it's been done to you? I said, no. I can make a deal. I said, you to go in front of a judge, the whole New York press there and say that you cheated somebody, that you lied, that you robbed somebody? You're going to say that? She goes, did you do that? I said, no, I did not. You know, I did not. I was sober. I ran a clean shop. We had regulatory issues, but we were regulated, and we always worked those out. I was set up. And prosecuted because somebody wanted my business. I built a big business. I had 10,000 millionaires as clients, all outside of America. Barclays Bank offered me $300 million to sell. When they couldn't put me out of business, first of all, I had regulators in my office for 2 years nonstop to put me out. But we complied with everything. We did all the right things. They couldn't push me out of business. Then they offered to buy me out of business. They offered me $300 million to walk away. And I said no. I was naive. I was arrogant, very arrogant. I was unhumble. I was showy. I was abrasive, all those things. Not sober qualities. I was clean. That's where I say maybe not sober. I look back now and I realize they kept me out of jail for years. They came into my place in 2006. I didn't go to jail until 2014. At any time, I could have walked in and made a deal. I could have given you up. They didn't care. They gave me, we know you didn't do anything wrong. But I fought. I said, no, I'm not guilty. This is America. How could I go to jail if I didn't do what they said? Now, listen, as I've said here, I've done a lot of things. I lived in the speculative end of the stock market pretty much my whole career. I did a lot of bad things in my life. People that really, really know me say it's karma. You got away with so much over your whole life. This is your karma. And there's a show being pitched to Netflix with me in it, actually called Karma right now. I know it's a really crazy story. But, that's what, when you talk about prison, I walked into prison sober. The anxiety of before going to prison, because I kept winning appeals. Everyone said, front page New York Times said it's going to be overturned. No, they got me on some law that didn't really ever exist anymore. That no one could ever get charged with it again or any of these things, just like Trump. But he won. If Trump lost the presidency, he lost that election, he'd be in jail for the rest of his life. His kids would have gone to jail. Just so you know. So I'm a victim of lawfare. People understand what that means now. That there were 2 prosecutors in Lower Manhattan that charged me with crimes while I was in London, manipulating the London Stock Exchange with all foreign investors. The stock exchange came to my trial and said I did nothing wrong. I complied with all the laws while I was in London doing business. But there were people in New York that put a legal hit on me, just like they did to Trump. In New York, what a shock. What a shock. And now that Trump's president, his people say they're going after the prosecutors that charged and convicted him. So people now are starting to see. So I'm a victim of this very activity, this corruption. And, it's just part of my story today. And I'm not afraid to tell it. And I really, with the grace of God, I'll be able to get this word out and people will know and understand what I've been through. And I'm a decent guy. And, here's the thing. It's a very interesting thing. They say that a real criminal, when he goes to prison, it's his first good night's sleep in a long time. Because he's been living with this knowledge, on the run, whatever it is, getting away with stuff. And he goes to prison. The jig's up. He knows it. A lot of guys that committed crimes, they walk into prison, they go to sleep, they're happy. It's like that's part of their life. Me, it was like going back to 1991 when I got out of rehab and I didn't sleep for a year. I didn't sleep in prison. So I'm like, what?
Yeah.
I'm talking to God round the clock. What? I ran AA meetings in every prison, every camp I was at. What am I doing here? Now, there are guys that will tell you that you'll be hearing about, telling a story that the reason I went to prison was so I could meet them and help them. A lot of people say that. Thank God you went to prison. Thank God for you. Otherwise, this, that, and the other thing. Again, we have anonymity and things like that. It just wouldn't be smart. So I did help a lot of people. I educated a lot of people. I was a teacher. I was a mentor. I taught classes, and now I'm an educator. So while I was in prison, everybody kept saying, you know, Ross, if you would just package this up like you would have done it here, because the Department of Justice approved me teaching, you actually got credit towards an earlier release if you completed my course called ACE classes. I taught ACE classes. I taught classes in psychology and mental health, all these different things. And so if you could just package this up, and when you get out, put it out on social media and the internet, you'll make millions. And guess what? That's what I'm doing now. We've launched the Wealth Formula, which is the most comprehensive business course ever launched. It's a 114-page text, 14 chapters, individual chapters with downloadable PDFs, worksheets, etc., quizzes. It's interactive because I have a partnership with Brad Lee and Lightspeed VT in Las Vegas, Nevada. You go to any of my social media sites, you click on training, you know, Ross Mandell, training.com, you click on the link, or you go to my website, rossmandell.com, 2 S's, 2 L's, and you scroll down, you buy the Wealth Formula. It'll change your life. We made it very entertaining, but it is the most complete, most comprehensive course on business ever put out. One of the things I did when I got out, I ordered every single online course that there is. Most of them are garbage. Most of them are just a bunch of guys that never really did anything in the real world, but they're fabrications. They're created by social media. They claim they're great salesmen, but all they did was like sell cars. We use cars. We're printing supplies. They never made any real money and all these different things. You have all these these trading classes. They're just trying to take your money. They have Telegram channels, Discord channels, and they're trying to teach you how to trade options on futures of some secondary or tertiary cryptocurrency. As soon as the market corrects, you're going to lose all your money. We're teaching you from start to finish how to take an idea or a product and turn it into $1 million business. All the most clever, most comprehensive techniques and knowledge. 14 chapters of me on camera in a studio, explaining to you, showing you how I did it, using my own life experience to show you why a corporation, why an LLC, why you incorporate in Nevada or in the Bahamas or in Delaware, etc. We talk about how to value your company, how to pitch your company, how to structure your company, how to document your company. We include every document you need to create a business today and run a business. We did a little thing. It would cost you over $5,000 just to buy these documents alone on the internet. Right now, you can get the whole thing for $300 with all the documents. Whatever you need. We included everything because I don't need one complaint or one problem. And right now, so for everybody that's taking the course, everyone is giving a testimony. We're 100%. And I do a mastermind. I mentor people. You know, you can buy my time. There's a for $5,000, you can get me for 10 hours right now. Actually, it's $6,000 now. Sorry. And it'll probably be 10 by the time this comes out. But you get my private time and you can use it any way you'd like. And I've 10X the guy's business already. A guy first came to me, he was barely making $10,000 a month. By the time we finished, actually really 3/4 of the way through the course, he was making $10,000 a week. He just had his first $82,000 week.
How long is the course?
You get 10 hours of Ross Mandel.
And how long was he doing it until he started making 10,000 a week?
10,000 a week was about halfway through, about 5 hours.
Oh, wow.
Correct.
Of what the first?
He was selling precious metals.
Got it.
And I was able to change from 10,000 a month, eking by 10, barely making 10. I suspect he was making less than 10,000 a month, to 10,000 a week.
Quadrupled.
And then he had 1 week was 82,000. And that was right before the 10th hour. And now we're good friends. I give you my number. You had how to reach me. Yeah. I'm very much determined to alter the trajectory of your life by using the experience that I've learned through my life. I'm a doer. We shared a little bit about it today. I'm a doer. I see things that I want. I meet people that I respect. And, that's how I learned how to dress. That's how I learned the car I like. That's how I learned the neighborhoods that I want to live in, where my kids could go to school, the clubs that I wanted to join, the private jets. I owned a jet. I owned a yacht. I mean, I've had all the toys. Not so interested today in all that. I'm interested in creating a legacy so that the world remembers Ross Mandel, and the prison years are just an asterisk in the story of my life. I want to change the narrative. Okay. I don't want it to be like, wow, this guy, reached the top pinnacle of Wall Street and then crashed and burned, disappeared. I will not go quietly into that good night. I will not. And I'm excited for where I'm at. And I'm excited to meet you, bro.
Yeah, I really appreciate you coming on. I mean, we were just talking a little bit before, and I know people that know you, and the amount of humility, you're sitting there, willing to listen to me and Nelson. You're giving us advice, and we're all sitting there passing this knowledge around. And I see how grateful you are for what you have today and what you've built today since prison. And
it's exciting.
So I feel, you talked about being clean and being sober. I felt that sobriety, that gratefulness, that energy. And it's a beautiful thing. And, you and I were both in the program, brothers, in the program. And it's always good to come together with someone and, just put our minds together and
it is, I studied physics while I was inside, something I always wanted to do. And Einstein posited, E equals MC squared is his famous relativity, theory of relativity, which they've now proven 1,000 different ways. And it basically says everything is energy. Everything. This chair I'm sitting is made of energy. You just, when you take certain subatomic particles and you slow them down, they become mass. Well, who slowed them down? It's a creator. If you look at this under a microscope, you'll see that this is not a solid thing.
Nope.
It's billions of subatomic. So we're all energy. That's just fact at this point. We're all made of energy. So when like-minded guys get together, especially that have a common background, Long Island, et cetera, Albany, I mean, you blew me away with that, right? It's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
You knew where my Western Avenue dorm was. I mean, I haven't thought about that in years. I was there in 1975. How crazy, right?
Is that 50 years ago?
Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah. My 50-year high school reunion is this year.
Wow.
They're debating whether it should be in New York or Florida. When you bring like-minded guys together, it's just like your energy, my energy, his energy. That's what it is. It's a combination. And, I could feel it, and I appreciate it. You mentioned grateful. I tell you one thing. Before I found the program, this is important for anybody listening or watching. Before I found the program, when things were going bad my way, right? I was resentful. I was angry at God. I was. And I used to say that if there was no such thing as bad luck, I'd have no luck. You know what I mean? And I understood, I was taught the concept of gratitude. And I didn't really get it at first. But, just like when I went to Wall Street, you act your way, act as if, right? I used to put on a suit and tie and I went down to Wall Street. I carried the Wall Street Journal. I didn't know what the fuck I was saying. I didn't know the difference between a stock or a bond or arbitrage or smarbitrage or market making. I don't know any of that stuff. But I acted as if. One day, I was rushing to a meeting and I stopped to, get my shit together. I'm looking in the mirror. And I said, you know what? The illusion became the reality. I'm a real guy. I'm really doing $10, $20 million deals, like weekly. I'm advising Fortune 500 executives. I'm making millions. If I decide to tell the world that I like a particular stock, go up 2-3 points because hundreds of guys follow whatever I do, the illusion becomes a reality, right? And so when I'm in the program, I just didn't get a lot of stuff. It was new for me, Gratitude. I'm grateful when I see 20 million in my account. That's gratitude. Gratitude is when this super hot girl gives me a number. You know what I mean? That's gratitude. Gratitude is when I go to the Mercedes dealer and he gives me a brand new 600 AMG, and it's mine. So I was being introduced to this concept of just being grateful and gratitude. And I'm not naturally a grateful person. I found that out. Over years, I'm just not naturally grateful. And, I had a very smart guy. And again, he had what I wanted. And I attached myself to him. And he said, you wake up, go find your gratitude. You're not thankful? Go find your fucking gratitude. Look for it. Remember when you didn't have enough Valium? You found it, right? I took subways in the middle of the night to a place I would never go in a million years with Biden with bodyguard, but I would go to get my pills because otherwise I'd be, like that. And found the money to buy that extra 8-ball when I was crashing, So you go find your fucking gratitude. And here's something that's great. They taught me. A grateful person is never unhappy. A grateful person is never unhappy. So if you're not happy with your lot in life and things not going your way, go find your fucking gratitude. Beg for gratitude. Here's the interesting thing. The more gratitude you have in your life, the more the universe keeps sending you away. The more you attract. So whatever little you have, you got a crumb, thank God for that fucking crumb. You know what'll happen? That crumb will start multiplying. And I was like, I don't know, this guy's full of shit,
A little fucking wacky.
Yeah, this guy's whacked. I don't know. I think that he had wet brain, He had one drink too many. And I said, but you know what? Let me try it. Don't cost a thing. It's millions of dollars of free advice. It costs me nothing. I wake up every day, I look for that gratitude. Once I realize I'm up and he didn't grant my wish, I find my gratitude. And I did that in prison. And when I got out, my ex-wife was like, what happened to you? What happened to you? I said, what do you mean? You're so patient. What's wrong with you? I said, what do you mean? I'm okay. How can you be okay? Don't you want this, and this? I go, of course I do. I'm going to have it all. I'm going to have everything. I'm just so grateful for this little crumb that I have now. And she never heard the big speech I gave you. She thinks I'm out of my mind, right? She wants, and I get it. That's who I was. But when life was slowed down for me, and I had a chance to digest a lot of the wisdom that is freely available to us. It's free. I used to think AA was a big scam when I first went in there. I'm thinking, who's making all this money? They're asking for $1. Some guys are putting in fives. I mean, what's the angle? You know what I mean? I couldn't believe that this could be such an amazing thing that's for free. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe there were so many good people. Everybody in my life was a hustler, drug dealer, an escort. A shyster, a schemer, a sketchy dude, someone looking to get over. And that's how the world seemed to me, because that's the world I chose to live in. But when I asked for help that day, and I said, if anybody can help me, it was like the whole world said, I got you. Women, beautiful women. I mean, people, men. I mean, good people. There's so many good people. And I'll give you an example. When there's a crisis, a public crisis, like something happens to somebody, wrongful thing, or fires in LA. I mean, you look up and you say, like, people gave millions of dollars. People gave millions of dollars. Who are these people? I mean, some people, dollars and thousands and hundreds. It's amazing. There's so much goodness if you look for it. If you're looking for trouble, I promise you, there's plenty of trouble. You know what I mean? And so when, me and Nelson were sitting there talking about Ian, big shout out to Ian, a lot of love for you in this room. I learned this and I learned that. It's beautiful. It's that goodness. And that brings more goodness. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, Ross, thank you so much. Do you want to shout out any of your channels? You shouted out your website and your course before. Your socials, you want to share them?
Ross Mandell on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. I got a new Facebook group called Going Public with Ross Mandell. You have Ross Mandell. Send me a friend request. Ross Mandell. I got a fan page. Follow me. The real Ross Mandell on YouTube. Come on, let's go, baby. I got to get my Google numbers up.
Subscribe.
Yeah, subscribe. Hit me up. What's with you people? And just a lot of love for everybody. And just click on the training, Ross Mandell, on any of my social sites. The wealth formula will change your life. And if you really want to change your life, hit me up at info@rossmandell.com. We'll get you a mastermind deal. And I'll be in your life, a part of your life. I promise you, I won't go away and I won't stop until I've changed the trajectory of your life for the rest of your life. I don't say that lightly. So thank you so much, Kevin.
Thank you,
What a
Ross.
privilege.
It's a privilege to have you on. I appreciate it, man.